So I have a big problem. I have a lot of loot and I completely skipped the early game, meaning I don't have a house. So today, not only will I be building a starter house, I'll also be building an insane storage room to last me a few months. Let's get into it. So first of all, I'd like to lay out the foundations of this house because I have a slight feeling that we're not going to have enough space right here. Only issue is we don't have much in the way of building blocks, so let's use netherrack to lay out this foundation. Let's begin. So we got these blocks marking the boundary for the house in place, and I really like the shape we're going with here. We've essentially got a bunch of interconnecting squares. This may look a bit strange right now, but I've got a plan, so don't worry about it. We're still a ways away from getting started on this build because we have a few problems. The first and the biggest issue we have is the fact that we need to do a bunch of terraforming. Like this layer right here is where I want ground level to be. So this part is fine, but we need to change all of this to grass, which means we need to remove some of these blocks. We need to add a bunch more grass coming out here, so that involves a bunch of terraforming where we need to deal with these submerged pools right here. And to top it all off, we're going to have to terraforming this cliff face, bringing it out a few blocks to give us a bunch more room to build this thing. And last but not least, we need to deal with our storage situation because it's right in the middle of where we're going to be building. So let's do this first. Alright, that's a lot better. I just went ahead and moved all the items over here, so this should be out of harm's way for when I am doing my terraforming stuff. So I think the best thing to do right now would probably be to mark out the boundary of what we need to be doing. So we're going to need a bunch of dirt for that, which we should have some over in these chests. That's more than enough. Okay, let's start this side and mark out the boundary. Now that's going to give us a lot more space. Let's fill it in. Okay, so we've run into a bit of an issue. That issue being we've completely ran out of dirt. So in order to continue with this project, I'm going to go and gather an additional 2 inventories worth of dirt. However, we obviously can't do it anywhere near here because this is Starter Town. However, fortunately, I have the perfect area in mind. So here we are arriving at the perfect spot, the village. As you can see, I've already been gathering some dirt over here. So let's go into the remains of this jungle and we'll gather up a whole bunch more. Alright, that's perfect. Let's head back to Starter Town. So back over in Starter Town, before we go and place all this stuff, the smart move would be to remove all of these trees. Okay, let's get the rest of this dirt placed. And would you look at that, look how much more space we've got to play with. This has given me so much more room than what we had before. So at this point we're essentially to wait for the grass to grow, so that's going to take a little bit. But before we actually get started on the house itself, I'm actually going to go ahead and do these cliffs. Because right now this looks a bit daft. So let's get to it. So after getting these cliffs finished, I spent a little bit of extra time looking at them and I have a bit of a confession. I don't entirely like them. All we essentially need to do is add a bit of detailing work, maybe some moss here and there, maybe some leaves, and this stuff should be fine. And on top of that, we also connected it with the terraforming and we enabled it over here. On the topic of terraforming, we covered up the water pools that were over here as well, so this area I've terraformed is now connected up with the terrain over here. So myself and Lazy now have a bunch of extra space out front of where our houses are. So now that we've got that terraforming out the way, we can actually start working on the house. But first of all, we need to remove this netherrack. And next up we need to gather a bunch of deep slate. Next up we're going to need a sawmill, place it down, and we need to turn this deep slate into the blocks we need. Now that we've got these blocks, let's start construction. First of all, let's start with the foundations. Oh, I like this. I really like that deep slate tile texture. Since this bottom colour is as dark, I think we need something bright for the main body of the building. But I'm not talking about concrete here. Smooth quartz will be the way to go. Okay, let's smelt this quartz up. So with this smooth quartz smelted up, let's take this into our inventory and get started putting up these walls. So these walls follow the deep slate outline we made earlier, which forms a really interesting shape when it's all done. I had originally planned on using a different block palette. I even prepared a bunch but ended up using smooth quartz as it worked better at this scale. But don't worry, I'll save these block pallets for a future project. So with these walls finally being up, it gives us a better feel for what this house is going to look like, and I'm quite happy with it. Now before we can actually move on with building the rest of this house, we're going to have to go and get a few materials, which will involve me collecting my diamonds and taking a trip over to the shopping district. So arriving over in the shopping district, we need to buy a whole lot of wood. Okay, so let's go for 4 stacks of dark oak, 4 stacks of spruce, and 4 stacks of warp stems. In fact, no, let's make it 5. Now we also needed a bunch of spruce, but unfortunately Rustic's shop was out. However, I should already have a bunch back at home. So let's return to the starter town and continue our build. So for the next part of the build, we're going to be focusing on the roof section. To start, we'll be placing a few rafters and outlining the overall shape using dark oak. So now that those roof pieces are in, this build is starting to take shape. After I did that, I also went and filled in the floor in this place since we're going to be working in here very soon. So the plan for this build actually is we're going to have 2 floors. So we're going to have the ground floor here, and then up in the roof we're going to have another floor as well. Now you'll notice we've got 2 different roof layers, so this one won't have anything in it, this big one will. So now that I do these roof sections, we're actually going to need a few more different materials. We're going to need some more of this quartz and stuff like that, which I should have enough in my inventory, along with a few additional blocks, one of which being glass, because we need to start filling in these windows. So if my math is correct, we need about 16 glass. So I essentially need to go into the ocean over there and collect some. And since we're out here, let's kill some squid to get some black dye. Let's get that sand smelted up, turn some of these ink sacs into dye. With that glass, let's make some black stained glass, make some glass panes, and we can get these windows installed. Okay, those windows look good. That bit there's annoying me. Alright, let's fix that by doing something like this. Ah, much better. Let's add a stair right here, and we need a door. Dark oak should work for us, and there we go, perfect. Now all we need to do is get the roof in place. So first of all, let me tidy up my inventory. Now before we get to doing this roof, we need to decide on our block palette, because as it stands right now, we're already working with several different colours and only certain types of blocks will work with this. So the main body of the building is white, obviously, with a dark trim, that trim being the deep slate, along with some dark oak lining all of our roofs and other elements. There's a few different block palettes that would work with this, but for the purposes of this build, I'd like to do something that stands out from everything else. So we're going to be making use of a texture like this, but on its current form. If we strip this, look at that, we have a nice cyan texture right there. There's several different blocks that will work with this. Let's go and get the blocks we need. Okay, let's get some warp block. Let's buy some cyan wool, 3 stacks should do it, and we get a free totem. And there we go, we have our block palette. Now let's finish this roof. So when it came to building the roof, I went layer by layer, focusing on the smaller sections first, before moving to the middle, where I built the windows for the second level and the central tower. You know, for someone that's a redstoner as opposed to a builder, this isn't that bad. I really like what we've done here. Don't know about anyone else, but I'm getting this like old schoolhouse type of vibe from this. Now that we've done the outside, we can actually focus on the inside, and if we come in here real quick, you can see we've got quite a lot of room to play with. And I'm going to try to make as much use of this room as possible. Now in order to do the interior stuff here, I should have almost everything we need, apart from a few different items. We will be going to get those before we start any of the construction in here. In fact, the first collection of items we need to get is back over at the village, which I'm going to grab some wood because we may need to do some stick trading. Okay, so arriving over at the village, we should actually have enough emeralds for this. Now I know you must be wondering what I'm using these for, so let's drop the suspense and get into it. So as part of my decorations, I want to have suits of armour being displayed. And you know me, we're not going to be cheaping out for this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting 4 sets of diamond armour. Oh damn, we actually ran out. Well, that's not good. Oh, good thing I brought all this wood. Let's do some stick trading. Okay, that was more expensive than I would have liked, but we've got all the diamond armour we need. Alright, let's head back to Startown. So the other thing we need is these flowering azalea trees right here, because I want to put these in some flower pots inside for decoration. So after gathering the last of those resources, I went ahead and sorted out all the stuff we're going to need to get the interior of this house finished. So now it's time to put these materials to use. Let's get to it. So since the space we have is limited, I decided to go with small rooms in this build, making sure to use different colours to give this a more homely feel. This room we're looking at right now will act as my office. You know what? I'm quite happy with this interior. So obviously the office looks a bit different because I've filled it in a bit more. So we've got a little armour stand decoration here which I quite like. We're making use of some flower pots, and hell, we're even making use of some paintings. Now this isn't the only room we've got. We've also got a little sitting room through here, and now we've got a little connecting room that connects to our front and rear doors. Top of that, we come round to the rear of the building. We also have a ladder accessing the layers in the roof, which up here we have several bedrooms. All in all, I think we've made a pretty good use of the space we've had here. Now you may be noticing that we've actually got less space than we had before, because obviously we'll have these sections on the side of the building here. So what I've essentially done is I've actually got a hidden door there, so we're just doing the little sign and painting trick, and these areas are technically hidden. Obviously you can see it from the outside. I want to use this area to access my storage room, which will be down in the basement. So this storage room basement thing, I've given it a bit of thought and I've came to the realisation it's going to be quite large. Now due to its size, I've already went ahead and bought a bunch of extra wood and birch, because this is going to be a very wood heavy build. However, before we can even get to placing that stuff, we need to clear the room for it. And when I say clear the room, I mean we've got several thousand blocks to remove right below here. This is going to take a little while. So since I haven't got around to getting a beacon yet, it took about 40 minutes to remove all of this terrain. And after removing all of this terrain, I realised that we've got an insane amount of space down here. In fact, right here is our old mine from episode 1. Kinda forgot that was here actually. And yeah, right now we don't really have a way out. I mean, we could try and get through there, but alternatively we could just pop down below this terraforming here. Okay, so next up, I think we should probably get the floor in place so that we can easily build this thing. So let's go in here and make use of the dark oak we bought earlier on. We should also have some extra stuff up here. Cool. Okay, right, let's get this floor in place. So with the floor in place, this is starting to come together, although it is looking a bit strange right now. Basically, this is going to be more than just a storage room. The storage room is going to be down here at the end of this hall, where we're going to have 3 walls full of chests. They're going to have some doorways here leading off to, well, nothing at the start, but when we do more stuff like farms and other things, maybe a super smelter, they'll be down those hallways. And right here, this is just like a corridor. This is just a corridor to join on to the rest of the stuff, and basically this wing here and this one, this is how we're going to get in and out of this area. So right now, as you can see, my inventory is a bit of a mess because all of our chests upstairs are completely full. So in order to remedy that, why don't we get started on actually constructing our storage room. For this section of the build, I wanted it to be different when compared to the interior work we already did. So I made each of the rooms large and made entirely out of wood, giving it a nice warm homely feel. Okay, so off camera I added some finishing touches to this build, so why don't we go down and take a little look. So I've finished off these little side rooms here so that we can get up and down really easily using these water elevators. I've done the same on the other side. Now between this room and everything else we've done down here, there's going to be a visual disconnect, mainly because we've used a different block palette. That's because I wanted this part to feel like the house above. Coming through here, I wanted a bit of a more warm homely feeling because we're going to be spending a lot of time down here, which is why we're making use of a lot of earthly tones. But we used a bit too much, so I ended up using some carpets in the floor just to, you know, break this stuff up a bit. And the best bit about these carpets is it hides some lighting down here. Also did some decorative bits, had some more lighting up here, and then that leads us through into this storage room here. Now I think the way I'm going to be handling this is I'm going to use both of these sides for bulk storage, and then the centre here for more sorted items. And then, like I said before, we have these hallways down here that we can use for future projects. Now there's one thing I'm missing in here, and it's an ender chest. In fact, I need 2, but I'm not going to be doing that right now because at this point I really don't see the need. One thing I do need to do is I need to find another light source. I'll probably get like a lantern or something, but I don't currently have enough. If you liked that video, you should watch this one next.